Hey, everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. We are in a month we've dedicated to the theme of dual use technology. And this month has been sponsored by Fixar, so we appreciate them. And on this show, we've got two incredible folks here, not just one. And so we are going to be talking with Mary Carol Chruscicki, or MC. She is the Chief Technology Officer at AX Enterprise, and that is with a Z in enterprise. And we also have Abby Smith. Abby is now the CEO and founder of Andersmith. And you probably know her from her time at the FAA. She recently left the UAS integration office and has forged out on her own, working with amazing people like MC and her team out there in New York. So welcome, ladies, to the show.
Well, thank you.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So let's go first with MC. You also have a deep and rich history with the FAA. So tell us a little bit about your background, MC.
So I'll first start with I'm partnered with Pat Baskinger at AX Enterprise. As you mentioned, we are a New York State certified women-owned business, ISO certified 9001. We did that because we were supporting a large aerospace company once we jumped ship from that company. But I actually got started as a math and computer science teacher a few years ago. I won't tell you how many years ago, but a few years ago. And that led me to the Air Force Research Lab Information Directorate, which we here in Rome, New York, call Rome Lab. And I was heavily involved in internet protocols that we know today that are the foundation for everything that we do on the web, whether it be Skype or email, whatever the case may be. That work at Rome Lab led to us leaving and continuing that research at a large aerospace corporation. And it was focused on supporting the warfighter, bringing the internet we know today to the warfighter, whether they were on the ground or in the air. And after the 21 Badge of Honor with that company, Pat and I decided it was time to move on and try something different. Primarily because that company wanted us to move to California, and we love New York. Let me say it that way. We love New York, and so we wanted to stay in New York. We wanted to continue working with Rome Lab, so that was the beginning of AX Enterprise. And I'll save the rest for later.
Okay, good. Yeah, we're obviously going to dive deep into AX and what you all do here momentarily. But before we do that, thank you so much, MC. It's great background. Abby, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Dawn, thanks for the great introduction. I mean, you kind of gave it away. So I spent 33 years in well, that's what you do. 33 years in federal service, most of which was at the FAA. And I started as an air traffic controller. So I've got, vast experience with safety management systems, air traffic, airspace. And in the later, or I would say more recent period of my career, I spent in this innovation space in aviation, both drones and advanced air mobility, and in the counter UAS space. So what am I doing on here with AX Enterprise with a Z? Well, it just so happens that at a regional AVSI event last year, I had met Pat and MC earlier, but we broke into a conversation that led into many other conversations. And they said, hey, when you retire, if you are interested in doing some consulting, we might be able to use your services. And that was the start of a really beautiful friendship where I've really leveraged my experience, not only with a deep understanding of FAA, how it works, how the organization is designed, but also my connections of spending 25 years in Washington, D.C., in the policy world, and then with my deep bench of knowing a lot of people in this industry. And so it's been really, really fun supporting MC and Pat in their dual experience, both as software developers. I'm doing a little spoiler for you, MC, as well as being the operators of the New York UAS test site. So I'll stop there.
That's a perfect segue, Abby. So thank you, first of all, for everything you've done and for your career in federal civil service, but also, for what you're doing now. And so, MC, back to you. Abby's alluded to it. So let's talk about AX Enterprise. I heard software. I heard managing the New York test site. So tell us what AX Enterprise is all about. And I think we might have a video.
Okay, so let's roll the tape. But yeah, so as I said, a large aerospace company, it's too much to say. It was Northrop Grumman. We are working on advanced communications and mobile networking for the warfighter. We actually deployed the capability on the B-2 bomber. Global Hawk, which is, everyone knows, is a unmanned system, and Joint Stars, and supported the Iraq and Afghanistan war. Well, as we transition to AX, we continued that research and development portfolio with the lab, but that kind of shifted as large and small drones were starting to pop up as part of the fleet. We got more involved in integration with those platforms. And in parallel, we were awarded a contract with Oneida County and New York State to support the actually development of the FAA designated New York UAS test site. So we had a lot of things going on in parallel, but it was that, I'll say, cross-fertilization that made the New York UAS test site what it is today. And what I mean by that is we had so much experience working with the Air Force Research Lab, building out communication capabilities, networking capabilities that would integrate ground and air, multiple platforms. That's exactly what we wanted to do at the New York UAS test site from the perspective of putting sensors out there. So when folks came to test, we had a network of sensors to collect data against those tests and give that data to customers so that they could go home and assess good, bad, fix this, don't fix that kind of thing. And so it's really worked out. Our experience has really, I'll say, worked out well, because now we can help commercial and government customers when they come to the New York UAS test site.
So MC, are we talking about basically UAS traffic management and all the different components that make that up and enable beyond visual line of sight flights?
Yeah, so that's yet another piece or another layer, I'll say, of the stack. So at the ground level, you got all these sensors collecting data as small and large drones are flying in the national airspace. And because we are at a towered airport, we do have general aviation. We have a lot of military traffic coming and going here because of the large runway. But as we worked with NASA and the FAA to figure out, okay, physically they're in the airspace, but how do we actually manage that airspace? And that led to a number of developments related to UTM, or drone traffic management capabilities, and where we're headed in the future as these systems get larger and larger. So AX was supporting different projects, FAA, NASA projects, and then the Rome Lab, our partners at Rome Lab, kind of got wind of what was going on at the test site with respect to this, I'll say, layer of software support, and said, ruh-roh, this may have an impact on DoD, the Department of Defense, and how we train and test here in the United States. And so they kicked off a study that AX led to look at how was UTM going to impact, or will it impact, the Department of Defense, and specifically the Air Force in this case. And so we conducted the study. And at that time, UTM was in its infancy, so there wasn't much to study, but we got involved in the ASTM standards body, where they were starting to define what is UTM and UTM interoperability so that it could be a collaborative system. So one thing led to another. A spec was started to emerge, and AX began developing a UTM capability. And given we were also at the test site with a lot going on in the airspace, that's where we introduced visualization so that you could have air domain awareness. And so we look at UTM as a package of tools, if you will, or a toolbox to support an operation, whether you're at an airport or you're, an Amazon supporting distribution of products. And so those are the kinds of things that we're still doing the research development on those tool sets, but at the same time, we're also pushing it out so that we get feedback.
Wow. So now everybody listening, you understand why MC and Abby are in Dual Use Technologies Month. It's so interesting to me, MC, having been in the Air Force as long as I was, I was there kind of, obviously the Reapers, the Preds, we're flying them overseas for ISR and other missions. Smaller drones started getting a lot more popular around the 2012, 2013 time frame, not just across the US, but in the Air Force too. What was so interesting was how the Air Force and really the entire DoD wasn't really leveraging the small drones or thinking about something like UTM in terms of their own bases and logistical support or critical infrastructure. And it's so interesting that kind of the commercial side went out a little bit ahead first, but I didn't know about this study. So what year was this study that you did with Rome Labs relating to UTM for the Air Force?
It was 2016.
Wow. Okay. So I didn't know any of that was going on. I was working on the DoD's domestic use of UAS policy around that time. And, the nexus between what is happening in the military and on the commercial side has never been stronger, I think, than when it comes to this industry. And Abby, I'm going to go to you too, because, when you think about, I'm going to use MC's term, the stack, right? And, the toolkit that is UTM, you were one of the leaders of the Counter UAS Aviation Rulemaking Committee, or the ARC. I think when people think about UTM, I don't know that counter UAS always comes first thing to mind, but yet I believe, and I think you agree, that counter UAS capabilities, the ability to have airspace awareness, as MC said, and also possibly to do something about it if something's where it should not be in that airspace in terms of drone technology, is really key. So tell me a little bit, Abby, as you're working with MC and looking at UTM, not just at the test site, but more broadly, what are your thoughts on how counter UAS fits into this bigger picture?
Yeah, well, Don, that is such a really great point, and I want to address one. I want to like double down quickly on MC's work, because one of the things that MC and Pat hired me to help them with is they don't brag enough about the amazing work that they have going on at AX Enterprise. And this Clue UTM tool that they have is, talking about dual use. Um, as part of their agreement with the Rome lab is that they need to commercialize it, because the whole idea of dual use is that a UAS traffic management system and other services, because it is a service stack that's quite impressive, should be used both in commercial operations as well as DoD. And in fact, they're doing that in collaboration with the Northern Plains UAS test site and with NASA for DoD to demonstrate not just low altitude drones, but as we get into the larger drones, dare I say advanced air mobility, because they're kind of two sides of the same coin.
Right.
Their software's ready for that dual use. And when you think about, now tying it back into counter UAS, when you think about airspace domain awareness, one of the really cool things that tools and software protocols that are developing right now, like what MC and Pat have done at AX, allow is the ability to say, oh, I know who that is, and I'm not going to worry about it because they're doing their routine operation. And when we talk about counter UAS, the first thing people think about is a laser gun blowing up a aircraft, and that's a
Right.
pretty dramatic example of what counter UAS is. One thing we did in the ARC was really talk about the difference between detection of drones and mitigation of
Right.
drones.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
even when you
absolutely.
talk about mitigation, sometimes mitigating is calling the operator and saying, "What are you doing in there? Please leave."
Yeah.
But when you talk, I think that UTM and that whole suite of tools that we're referring to as like services under the
Yep.
developing part 146, that hopefully the NPRM is out soon, um really it enable is the ability to appreciate, oh, this whole tranche, probably 99.9% of the drones are doing exactly what they're supposed to, leave them alone, and really being able to hone in on the outliers that aren't squawking a remote ID, that aren't behaving anomalously. There, I
Right.
said
Right.
it. But anyway, I'll stop there.
No, look, this is all great stuff, and I want to go back to MC, just to be kind of crystal clear for folks out there watching this, what exactly you all do. So you have a software, you manage the New York test site at this point, right? And there's an outreach portion of that. You're also a system integrator as part of all of these things. I think that would bleed across all of these branches of services that you provide. Did I miss something, MC?
No, that about sums it up.
And Abby's like yelling with her.
Because we're talking about dual use, but really triple use, because as a system integrator, and and I'll let MC decide if she says who they're doing this integration for. They are the engineering team using the test site that's integrating this giant drone, okay, 1,800 pounds, that can fly for, what is it, 16 hours without refueling. And they are in charge of the integration of the detect and avoid technology. And they've got, again, not sure what I can and can't share about the names of the companies that are participating, but their crackerjack team of engineers have just about perfected the detect and avoid tech on board, enabling this very large UAS to get a 44807 exemption and a detect and avoid waiver, which is really, really exciting stuff.
Wow, that's awesome. I want to back up for a second, MC, and talk about the New York test site. Now, people, I think they get confused, right? Because there were actually 7 original test sites designated by Congress in law. New York's was one of them. You mentioned Northern Plains UAS test site. That was another. I know I believe Alaska was one. I'm not going to list them all. But then there were other, programs that popped up, right? Now, preaching the choir because Abby's here. Integration Pilot Program, the IPP, and then, the Beyond program was the follow-on to that. And there was like a UTM program, a couple other things popped up, and I think people conflate these things. But let's be real clear about the New York test site. It's one of the originals, designated by Congress. Now, you all also created a 50-mile corridor.
Yes.
Tell us exactly, like, give us kind of that around the world of the New York test site. What it means. What are the capabilities there that you're managing?
So, like I said, right out of the gate, New York made the decision, because we were at a towered airport, that we wanted to get the funds. So we approached New York State. We said, hey, we won. All right. And this is our idea. Not only New York State, but Oneida County, who technically has the agreement with the FAA, because test sites had to be with a non-federal public entity. So
Okay.
the test site is owned, I'll say, and by Oneida County, and AX operates the test site on behalf of Oneida County. But so right out of the gate, we proposed to New York State, look, for us to build this UAS ecosystem, i.e. attract businesses here,
Right.
we should spend funds on instrumenting not only the airfield, but we should push out and go to a neighboring city called Syracuse, New York,
Yeah.
because we believe that not only do you want to test, but you want to have something operational, right? Not everyone, someone, they could be testing in Virginia, but they want to implement their whatever they build here in upstate New York, whether it be delivering coffee or pizza, whatever the case may be. And we also knew that SUNY Upstate Medical was going to start a drone program. Actually, it's an entire robotics program. They have robots in the hospital in Syracuse, and they have drones doing pharmaceutical deliveries as we speak. So
Wow.
the plan though was the need was to reach out to clinics throughout New York State so that you could transfer blood quickly, transfer if, an organ, let's say, an organ donor situation pops up. So that was the end goal. So right out of the gate, not me, but New York and Oneida County invested in building an operation and data management center for collecting all that data, because the goal was to push out a number of sensors throughout the corridor and make the safety case to the FAA for doing this beyond visual line of sight. And that's what we did. And I think the touchdown was 3 years ago, maybe, that we got the official beyond visual line of sight corridor badge of honor. And we are currently working on a regular basis with Air Upstate, that's the robotics division, to now push them forward and their pilots and their platform to in fact do these deliveries.
Okay, that's amazing. So I've never been there, I have to say. I've been to Syracuse, and my son went to Rensselaer Polytechnic for a little bit, so I'm aware of the Albany and a kind of upstate New York area, originally from Philly. I haven't been to this site, so my question to you, MC, is
Yeah.
are you guys physically? I know yet, yes. Are you physically on Griffiths Air Force Base? Okay, so
Yes.
this is really important, everybody, because we're talking about dual use, and North Dakota obviously has Grand Sky that's also co-located on Grand Forks Air Force Base. That connection being so close to the military is really key when it comes to those collaborations with the military, and then of course bringing commercial technology in. So pretty amazing, what you're doing there. Abby, I want to ask you a question about this, because this corridor, what, 3 years, I think MC just said, kind of got that official approval. We're hearing a lot now about this Dallas Key site, and it's an operational evaluation. I'm doing a lot of air quotes here because it seems to me that if you're flying in a corridor that's between Griffiths Air Force Base in Syracuse, New York, somewhere, and flying medical supplies, as an example, that seems to be kind of operational and something that you could also evaluate.
So, Don, I hear you. And what I would also add is that one of the cool, because I got to brag a little bit more on MC and Pat and the New York UAS test site. One of the really cool things is it is on a towered airport. So as vehicles are doing tests and operational things like SUNY Air Upstate, um, they're actually flying through commercial, general aviation, and military traditional aviation. And so it's the only test site where you really get a full picture of the promise of integration that's coming with the beyond visual line of sight rule. And in that vein, I think one of the things that is really important to also point out here is that Beta Technologies has charging stations at Griffiths International Airport. In fact, it's the only airport right now in the region that has a vertiport. And so it's certainly the only test site that has a bona fide vertiport at the moment. And so they're really in a special. Um, I'm going to pause.
Yeah, I hear her
So,
little puppy in the background. But
so,
yeah, go
so
ahead, MC. You're chomping at the bit.
So, couple things. The vertiport, it's a pretend vertiport, right? But we do have, we are the first to get the approval from the FAA. I think they call it an ALP, the ALP paperwork that's giving us the approval. If it isn't signed, it's gonna be signed any day now, from what I understand from the commissioner of the airport. But I want to back up a little bit when you asked about the Griffiths Air Force Base. As you know, it was a SAC base. We
Yep.
had B-52
The
bombers.
Strategic Air Command, by the way, everybody. If you don't know what STAC is,
Yeah.
that is an old acronym.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the New York UAS Test Site Operations Center is in the old Griffiths Air Force Base Operations Center. The state and the county invested over $12 million to redo this building, and our neighbor is the Innovari Advancement Center. That is an open innovation campus for Rome Lab, which is directly across the street. So the ecosystem that we have here for not only the drone ecosystem, but just entrepreneurs in general. And then with Rome Lab across the street, we have them as key partners. And you brought up counter UAS and UTM. That's huge. Rome Lab is leading for the Air Force counter UAS activities, as well as the UTM capabilities. So all those capabilities are here at the New York UAS test site being tested. And UTM is seen as a sensor, which I think you alluded to counter capabilities. And those are the kinds of research activities we're involved in.
Well, look, MC and Abby, both of you, people that are watching this, people in this industry, they want to get involved. They want to showcase their technology. They want contracts, for example, with states and with the federal government and with the DoD in particular. So, are there any particular programs or opportunities right now, for example, at the New York test site, MC, that you could tell people about, that, hey, there's this thing out there, like, you should consider this? Because I know, I just was at recently, with, your colleagues up in North Dakota, and they have Project Ultra, which they're talking about now, which has a UTM component, has logistics component, stuff that
And
you're also doing. Yeah.
AX is in Ultra. AX
Yeah.
is part of the Ultra program.
So wait a minute, explain. Sorry. So tell me how you're part of Ultra, number one. And then number two, tell people how they can work with you in New York in some of the programs that are out there.
So Ultra is I'll call it a public-private venture, if you will, right?
It is.
So funds were given to North Dakota to, build out their ecosystem, their UAS ecosystem. But because of the work that they're doing and their neighbors, which include General Atomics and Northrop Grumman,
Yeah.
the Department of Defense said, hey, we want to play as well. And let's define an experiment, if you will, and bring all these capabilities together and see where we can take this, not only for the military, but the commercial world. So,
Right.
And that's what Ultra is all about, is doing, using, we started out, it wasn't called Ultra originally. We've been doing this for a couple of years now with North Dakota. It was all about smalls and UTM and working with NASA as well. And now we're pushing into larges because the military is very interested in large UAS to support logistics, right?
Yeah, there's a space base in North Dakota, and I'm sorry the name escapes me, but I know that's like their next kind of tranche. The requirement is they're simulating this, but then they're going to fly some cargo off the base, right, from Grand Forks, Grand Sky to this location. So what exactly is AX doing in this mix? Like, what is your role in Ultra?
So they still want to have UTM is part of the play, right?
Yeah.
We got to all play together, but we've also, under the CLUE program, we have also been pushing out the USS, pushing out probably isn't the right word, expanding USS capabilities to investigate what is that future PSU that is going to be used in the future AAM world. So
okay, so UAS service supplier, PSU. Remind me that acronym. Abby, let Abby do it. She's not remembering. All right, somebody.
I'm good. I'm drawing a blank.
All right, I'm going to Google it while you're talking. But PSU for, and this is an AAM, right? NASA CONOP?
Yes. Yes.
Provider of, okay. It's a provider of services to UAM, UAS, or UAM, Urban Air Mobility, provider of services for UAM. So it's like the equivalent for AAM or UAM as like for UTM, the USSs. All these acronyms get very confusing, but basically that's what you're doing, is kind of the UTM and kind of exploring the USS kind of integration, and then on the AAM larger aircraft side for cargo deliveries of big ones, this PSU integration and how all that is going to work. So let me throw this back at you then, MC. I asked you a two-part question. We digressed a little bit. The second part was at the New York test site. So you're in North Dakota working with those great folks out there on Project Ultra. Do you have anything similar where companies can plug into your efforts in New York and get involved in projects like this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The short answer is yes. So as I mentioned, Rome Lab is right across the street. They have an extremely large portfolio that is about UAS, counter UAS, command and control, artificial intelligence. Their research and development budget is nearly $2 billion. Now
Wow.
we're in a CRA right now, so money's frozen, but there are a number of open broad agency announcements online that you can get access to. Essentially write a white paper. And if your idea is accepted, then, they'll ask you for a proposal. AFWorks is a very big player here. AFWorks is an Air Force program that includes SBIRs and STTRs. I'm not going to know what that acronym is either.
Yeah, it's God, my brain. SBIR is a Small Business Innovation and Research, award. The SITR is like testing. I can't think right now, but yeah, they're related. And everybody can like Google this stuff. Actually, the STTR is the Small Business Technology Transfer Program. These are very nuanced, federally, basically congressionally created programs. So when you hear things like, AFWorks or SoftWorks, they have access to funds that go in here and can award these to companies for really interesting research projects. MC and Abby, both of you, I'm going to ask you this because when MC was in Clubhouse, she said something. It was the first time I ever heard it, and I want to make sure we talk about it here. We've talked about how AX Enterprise is plugging in elsewhere, like in North Dakota, how people can plug into what AX is doing at places like the New York test site, right, that they manage. But you also have a charter to delegate your authorities and work with other people around the country to create, let's call them almost like satellite type spaces for R&D dual use. So tell us a little about that. First, I'm going to ask Abby, like, this was kind of an FAA initiative. I know you don't work there, you don't speak for them, so that caveat's out there. But you're obviously, involved in some of this idea of, I'm going to use MC's words, push out the ability to do this in more places than just at the test sites. So tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, and let's just give a shout out to Kathy Cahill and the Alaska test site, because they've really been major champions and really leaned forward into thinking of a test site not as a location but as a capability. And so MC and Pat are really excited about reframing what the New York UAS test site is, in addition to the incredible location that you can really get a full picture of the promise of true integration with legacy aircraft. The other exciting thing is there's a lot of places, take Ohio, take Oklahoma, take Louisiana, many places around that call themselves test sites, but they don't actually have any authorities
Right.
um, in which to test. And so in partnering with an FAA authorized test site and becoming a satellite location, um, it really creates flexibility and expands um, people's ability to do research development, integration testing, durability, just getting hours because the waiver process is less. Because if you're working at an official FAA UAS test site, um, you are under what's called like public aircraft authority, which really alleviates a lot of traditional red tape in getting your testing completed.
Well, I love that, this, look, as a lawyer, I love, hey, a site is not like a physical place. It is a capability, and we can export that capability. And MC, I'm going to ask you, how do people tap into what you have to offer them? Like, say I'm in Colorado, hypothetically speaking, CSU Drone Center has this amazing Chris Minfield up there. They've got a university, right? They've got a lot of public safety people that they train, and so if they wanted to become basically, or leverage your authorities, how would that work? How, as a practical matter? I'm from CSU. I just call you up and I say, this is what we want. And then what, do you physically go out there? How does this work?
Yeah, so it is new for us. Abby's correct. Kathy Cahill, excuse me, has been leaning forward in this area. We took the other approach, which was to say, come to Griffiths because we have this airport that's instrumented. We got the instrumented corridor. And oh, by the way, and I didn't mention this, while there are federal opportunities with Rome Lab, New York State wants to grow their ecosystem. So they want companies to come here and do their established routes, do their testing, do their manufacturing. So that was our mantra. I'll say 6 months ago. But
Yeah.
now with this new reauth, we've had a lot more phone calls to say, hey, we need help. And so now we have created, first we encourage people to come here and see the New York UAS test site so they understand when we're talking to them, what is the art of the possible? What do they really need? What don't they need? And then from there, we have like a Chinese menu. Some of them are must-dos, right? For us to give them that authority. They, certain requirements. So we go over those kinds of things, and we're trying to make it affordable because we think it's important for, to help get UAS integrated into the national airspace. But while it's going to be, while we want it to be affordable, we need safety as our number one priority. So,
Right.
so that's the rigor that, we wrestle with different I shouldn't say wrestle, sounds negative, that we're working with other organizations on. I mean, even our, Beta, Abby mentioned Beta Technologies, their manufacturing is in Vermont, but they were recently granted money to establish a test site in Plattsburgh. And so they do fly from Plattsburgh to Griffiths on a regular basis. That's why the charging station is here. So, I see us making them an affiliate, if you will, of the New York UAS test site. So there are certain things that they, a little more flexibility when they're testing up in Plattsburgh. They don't have to come all the way to Griffiths if they don't want to.
Yeah, that's a great, I like that term, because words matter, an affiliate, that makes sense. So maybe you all just heard it here for the first time, but this was the first time I heard it on Clubhouse when MC was talking about it. I think it's really exciting. You know, I did remember hearing that Dr. Cahill out of Alaska had partnered somewhere like in San Francisco, and then my buddies Ron and Ray out in Jersey, my Jersey boys out in Cape May. I know, you know, they were partnered out there and leveraging those authorities there. So I love that she sparked this and that you're now taking that. But, you know, your point is well taken that you have an established site, you know, and a 50-mile corridor. So take advantage of that. Look, I knew our time would fly, and it has. So we literally have like less than a minute left. So what I want to do is cede the floor to both of you, give you each, you know, your 30-second kind of closing elevator pitch. I'm going to go to Abby first, and then we'll end with MC. And please include how people can reach you. So go ahead, Abby first.
Yeah, so I just want to give one more shout out about the New York UAS test site, because MC didn't even talk about the fact that there's this incredible indoor testing range. So I don't know if you ever saw any of the footage from the riots that happened at Woodstock 1999. Well, this hangar that they're in is thank God for that, because it really spawned refurbishment, and they've poured a ton of money into this. I know MC wants me to stay short of saying anechoic chamber, but it's okay. It's for RF testing, and you can use your counter tools, or you can test in a GPS denied environment.
That's
It's very
huge.
cool. If you,
Yeah.
oh, it's amazing. So that's in addition to all the other cool stuff happening in New York. If you want to reach me, you can get me at abby@andersmithsolutions.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn. And
All
now
right.
over
Awesome.
to MC.
Thank you, Abby. MC.
So first of all, thank you for inviting Abby, because I do forget so much that because I take it for granted. She's absolutely correct. We have a very cool indoor facility. It's a repurposed B-52 hangar. And right next door are quantum labs, and we're actually testing quantum communications in Sky Dome. We call it Sky Dome. We couldn't come up with a better name. So that's the future of our networks, is secure networks, is quantum computing. So again, really cool ecosystem here. That's why we love to invite people here to see everything that's going on. We love our day job, and I'm pretty excited about what is happening and how we're supporting the next world of aviation. I don't have to watch George Jetson anymore and wonder. It's here. So, and I appreciate you inviting Abby and I to this podcast. It was very cool. You can reach me, and probably the simplest is just go to www.nyuastestsite.com, and you'll find me there, because my name's just too long.
It is long. All right. Thank you both so much. This was super informative. You know, for those that have never been in the New York test site, now you know what it's all about. You know what AX Enterprise with the Z is doing, not just in New York, but all over the place, and kind of the rich history in the defense world, coupled with Abby's in the FAA. What an amazing combination you guys have out there. So thank you again so much. And thank you everybody else. We are out here.
Thank you.